Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May his foes bow down before him and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations give him service. For he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy. Okay. So again, this is a psalm that opens with a prayer. In fact, I guess the whole psalm could be considered a prayer. In verse 1, God stands and judges in the assembly of the gods. Identity of the gods in verse 1b. And your righteousness to a king's son. So he's identifying Jesus. The high God sets forth the expectation to which the other gods must respond, be agents of restorative justice. In verse 2 through 4, the gods are confronted over their justice. In verse 2, the lowly and destitute are in the hands of the wicked guilty. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. In verse 3, it is God's work to give justice, maintain right rescue, and deliver. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. The godness of Yahweh has to do with taking sides against the wicked, the ones who imagine they are autonomous and so are free to prey on the vulnerable. Verse 4, may he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. In verse 5, the chaos left by the gods is described in verses 5 through 6. Other candidates for God are judged and found wanting, and so are condemned to death. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. And in verse 6 through 7, the gods are confronted with their mortality. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days, may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. And in verse 8, God is asked to rise in the assembly and judge the earth. Oh, I'm reading the wrong poem. I'm wondering what happened here. The poem or the scripture for 82, I was reading 72. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the orphan. Maintain the right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. This is a plea for justice. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk around in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I say you are God's, children of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, you shall die like mortals and fall like any prince. Rise up, O God, judge the earth, for all the nations belong to you. Okay, this is again showing justice to the weak. It's a plea for justice. This psalm asserts the supreme authority of God over every supernatural power. So some of the things you can do to refuse to show partiality to the wicked would be don't let the fact that a guy is your boss and can fire you influence your concept of truth and justice. So in other words, stand for the truth always. Don't let threats or intimidation influence your judgment of truth and justice. Don't let your personal love for an individual distort your concept of truth and justice. God hates partiality and injustice. It is not godly behavior to take advantage of others. You cannot take advantage of the poor, ignorant, or disadvantaged and think you are godly. If we love our neighbor as ourselves, we take care of them, not take advantage of them. God is saying that godly people don't do such things. He is also saying godly people don't allow such things to go on at the hands of others. I can remember a case when I was director of respiratory therapy at Detroit Receiving, and the supervisor told me that we were going to have to discipline one of our employees because he had done something wrong. So something told me to investigate this case thoroughly. The guy was a little goof off, but he did do good therapy. And so I did investigate to find out she was lying on him. She wanted to fire him. So she was the one that was fired. Let's now look at Psalm 72. And I'll read it again. This is the prayer for guidance and support for the king. Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days, may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May his foes bow down before him and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the king of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations give him service. For he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy, and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence, he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight. Long may he live. May God of Sheba be given to him. May prayer be made for him continually, and blessings invoked for him all day long. May there be abundance of grain in the land. May it wave on the tops of the mountains. May its fruit be like Lebanon, and many people blossom in the cities, like the grass of the field. May his name endure forever, his fame continue as long as the sun. May all nations be blessed in him. May they pronounce him happy. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who alone does wondrous things. Blessed be his glorious name forever. May his glory fill the whole earth. Amen and amen. The prayers of David, son of Jesse, are ended. The psalmist is convinced that injustice destroys the world. Psalm 72 is one of the 9 royal psalms that sing praise to the King of Israel as God's chosen representatives on earth. They are prayers from Israel's worship life for the king and his role as earthly ruler. Psalm 72 is timely for the season of Advent. During Advent, we hear and experience the kingship of the Messiah, who has come, is present, and will come again in power and glory as the Son of Man on the clouds of heaven. Psalm 72 views the ultimate purpose of the monarchy in terms of the fulfillment of God's purpose for the whole creation. It portrays the role of the king in stunningly positive language. So much of the Old Testament's commentary on Israel's king is negative. But here we note the positive tone, especially the tone of how the king is to do justice and establish a reign of peace and righteousness. Psalm 72 is timely for this season of Advent. We come in these Advent Sundays to hear and experience the kingship of the Messiah, who has come, is present, and will come in power and glory as the Son of Man on the clouds of heaven. In verse 1, it actually sets the tone and contains the only petition voiced to God in the imperative. Give the king your justice, and the king's son your righteousness. Saving justice is a trademark of God's reign and must be embodied by God's agent in the world. The rest of the psalm is organized around a long series of petitions that, being with, may he, the psalm asks that God grant the king and the people through the king's reign righteousness, justice, prosperity, protection from oppressors, a name that endures, shalom, well-being, political dominion through which all the world is blessed. And as a spontaneous response to these missional priorities, the tribute and admiration of the nation, this verse is considered a prayer and introduces the 2 key words and concepts, justice and righteousness. When God's will is done, when justice and righteousness are enacted, the result is shalom, peace. So in verses 2 through 7, I'll read those again. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like the rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his day, may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. The responsibility of the king is to establish justice for the oppressed, to save the needy. This was what God did in Exodus. And if you remember the story of Exodus, when the Red Sea opened up and the people came through, and so forth. And so God took care of his people. In verses 5 through 7, envision the extension of the king's rule in time and space. The Euphrates River, or perhaps the mystical river that flowed from God's throne in Jerusalem. In verses 8 through 11, envision the king's sovereignty as encompassing the whole world, all its rulers and all its people. The phrase "ends of the earth" recalls Psalm 2, verse 8, which also describes the king's universal dominion over the other kings and nations. And so verses 8 through 11, may he have dominion from sea to sea and from river to the ends of the earth. May his foes bow down before him and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him, all nations give him service. The words "bow down" and "serve," another reminder that the king's purpose is to enact God's reign, designate response ordinarily reserved for God. And then verse 12, for he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper, connects universal political dominion to the king's care for the oppressed. Recalls verse 4 already began to suggest the king does what is ordinarily attributed to God. He delivers when people cry out. He saves. He redeems. He values the lives of those entrusted to his care. Verse 15, long may he live. May the God of Sheba be given to him. May prayer be made for him continually and blessings invoked for him all day long. Long may he live is essentially a prayer that God enacts God's will. In verses 18 and 19, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who alone does wondrous things. Blessed be his glorious name forever. May his glory fill the whole earth. Amen and amen. Seems to have been added to the main body of the psalm by scribes who were compiling the psalms. They are benedictions to God, a doxology that closes out book 2. And that's what we're working on, book 2 of Psalms. Verse 20, the prayers of David, son of Jesse, are ended in the pattern of Jesse's son, David, and David's son, Solomon. We see the way in which God's kingly reign and rule is present in the one whom he heralds as the Messianic King, Jesus, the Son, man, who will come on the clouds of heaven in great power and might. This is our Advent promise and proclamation. Now, of all the Psalms, Psalm 49 has much to do with possessions and with money. And this psalm is to the leader of the Korahites. Hear this, all you peoples. Give ear, all inhabitants of the world, both low and high, rich and poor, together. My mouth shall speak wisdom. The meditation of my heart shall be understanding. I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will solve my riddle to the music of the harp. Why should I fear in times of trouble, when the iniquity of my persecutors surround me, those who trust in their wealth? and boast of the abundance of their riches. Truly, no ransom avails for one's life. There is no price one can give to God for it. For the ransom of life is costly and can never suffice, that one should live on forever and never see the grave. When we look at the wise, they die. Fool and do it perish together and leave their wealth to others. Their graves are their homes forever, their dwelling places to all generations. Though they named lands their own, mortals cannot abide in their pomp. They are like the animals that perish. Such is the fate of the foolhardy, the end of those who are pleased with their lot. Like sheep, they are appointed for Sheol. Death shall be their shepherd. Straight to the grave they descend, and their forms shall waste away. Sheol shall be their home. But God will ransom my soul from the power of Sheol, for he will receive me. Do not be afraid when some become rich, when the wealth of their houses increases, for when they die, they will carry nothing away. Their wealth will not go down after them. Though in their lifetime they count themselves happy, for you are praised when you do well for yourself. They will go to the company of their ancestors, who will never again see the light. Mortals cannot abide in their pomp. They are like the animals that perish. This is a wisdom psalm or a didactic poem that functions as a declaration of faith in God. The wisdom psalms have much in common with Torah piety in their modest way of adhering to God's perceived will, but ponder life in terms of all creation. For wisdom teaching is indeed creation theology. The psalm is a meditation upon wealth and what it does to human community. The psalm was presented as a song accompanied by the harp. Verses 1 through 2, the introduction consists of an invitation for everyone in the world to hear. Let's take a look at that again. Hear this, all you peoples, give ear, all inhabitants of the world, both low and high, rich and poor together. Verses 3 through 4, characterization of the subsequent song. My mouth shall speak wisdom, the meditation of my heart shall be understanding. I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will solve my riddles to the music of the harp. Verse 5 through 12 and 3 through 20, the song can be divided into two major sections, and these are the sections. 5 through 12 and 13, I'm sorry, I didn't put the one on there. 13 through 20. According to J. Clinton McCann, Jr., the message of Psalm 49 is that rich and powerful people, despite their illusions of grandeur and the status accorded by others, are not really in control of the world or even their own lives and destinies. Only, verse 15, only God rules the world and ultimately determines human destiny. The message of this psalm may have been particularly pertinent in the post-exilic era when God's people were perennially subject to richer and more powerful people. However, the message is also relevant today when our abundance tempts us to trust in our wealth and to overlook our finitude and fallibility. Now, I found this blog that I thought explained this 49 very well, and it's this Psalm 49, large print. It only takes engaging with different people to fully realize the extent of death. This was written by a preacher, a priest. Death doesn't play by societal rules. it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how much money you make, how kind or mean you are, and it doesn't matter your ethnicity or cultural background. Death simply doesn't care. If you are alive, death will hit you. Picture our psalmist walking down the street, observing people to their left, right, and all around. He sees the rich walking down the street with their gold and jewels, dangling and clanging loudly against each other as they walk, a tambourine of jewelry with their heads held high. They are proud of all they have accomplished. And as he walks down the street, he also sees the low and humiliated. They have no jewelry that make noise, no food to give their loved ones, no beautifully crafted clothes, drape them, and many of them have no place to lay their heads. The psalmist sees them both. And as the psalmist continues to walk, they see all those that society considers wise as well as foolish. One group foolishly living lives of haste and waste, not really understanding what they have or where they are going or even what they need. They waste and throw away what they have, maybe even going about making mistakes after mistake. This in contrast with the other group that is seen the wise. They are sages, thinkers, and philosophers. They sit and reflect on words, actions, people, and things considered high above all others. The psalmist sees them both. And it is in this moment that the psalmist is convicted. I picture them quickly looking around, and they find a wooden crate, something that will allow them to stand up above others so that both the tall and short can see them. Maybe they search around and quickly create a makeshift cone, something they can use to amplify their voice. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. This message is so devastatingly important that no matter the person, the place, the status, all must hear what needs to be said. There is a truth that must be shouted. Anything and everything will not last. It's a message we all must hear. We may count our wealth. We may trust in what we can and cannot do. We may look to the rich and be envious. We may count ourselves blessed by what we have and what we know. But in the end, when we die, we die. We cannot take what we have with us, nor can we do anything about it. Death is death, and death hits us all. And why is the psalmist so convicted? They have realized this wisdom for themselves, and they simply cannot continue to see people and society continue down this path of unforsakenness. They can't continue to see people seeking and trusting in themselves and things of this world when in the end it simply doesn't matter. I remember seeing a bumper sticker years ago that said, "He who dies with the most toys still dies," and that's the truth. But what we need to see here is that the psalmist is trying to give wisdom to others. They aren't trying to be a downer. They simply want people to put trust in where hope is found. Verse 15 tells us that God will redeem me from the realm of the dead. God will not leave the psalmist in decay, but will raise him up, her up, and take them to himself. This is a reality that all of us have faced and will face time and time again. That everything we as a society and culture deem as important simply is not. We are a worldly society that places nearly everything on status. And yet time and time again, we see that status means nothing in the end. So this begs the question, what does matter? If we are called to not gain status or wealth or worldly things, what should we do? First off, the psalmist simply wants us to turn to God, the only one who does endure. Put your trust in God and nothing else. Secondly, love. Love like there is no tomorrow. Love like there are no barriers. For your information, there are no barriers in true, authentic love, like God's love. Love like God. love in action, love in time, love exactly how you are loved by God. That's it. Those two things. Put your hope in God and simply love. Sounds easy, right? It is. However, we make it difficult in how we've sought worldly things and worldly actions. But it's really not that hard. Oh, and here's one more thing. Share your hope. Take a page from the psalmist and speak of true hope, true love, true grace. Let people know that God has not left them in the realm of the dead, that Jesus Christ overcame sin and death and redeems those that call upon his name. Give them hope and clarity, for things of this world will simply drag us down. Take a soapbox and a megaphone, grab some posters and flyers, plaster Facebook and Twitter with hope messages of God and his grace. Do something. Be the messenger of God's grace that we all were created to be. So I found that to be quite an interesting little blog on our scripture 49 that really is the only one that talks about money and possessions. Brueggemann picked out 5 psalms that he thought was important for this unit, and today's psalms were the last of the 5. So what do you think about this messenger of hope? What comes to mind? I think we shouldn't put our priorities, our trust in monetary things and things, because we're here to love our neighbors as ourselves and to love God, and that's where we should be. It's not that important that we have the largest screen TV or the biggest house or a dozen of them. And it's more important that we treat people well. And this whole unit, these 3, just peace and justice, treating people well is the most important thing. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I guess what I said, it was not that you shouldn't have money. You should make it the most important thing in your life. Do you follow me? Yes, I need enough money to pay my bills and live comfortably. Yes. And some people are blessed to have an abundance, and it's what they do with it. So that's verse 2 looks like. Both low and high, rich and poor together. If that's truly verse 2, the psalmist sees them both, verse 2. And as the psalmist continues to walk, they see all those that society considers wise as well as foolish. One group foolishly living lives of haste and waste, not really understanding what they have or where they are going or even what they need. They waste and throw away what they have, maybe even going about making mistake after mistake. This in contrast. So you think this is talking about the wealthy? I guess I thought the opposite. I thought the waste and haste are people who don't have much and they are not saving. They're not, they're throwing it away on maybe junk, maybe on frivolous things instead of things they need. I mean, because I see that a lot. I see people who don't have enough money to pay the bills, but under their Christmas tree will be everything the stores can offer. They're giving and they don't pay the bills. So then the next thing is they're out in the street with those toys.
It's really very easy, but it's very hard for us.
Oh yeah.
As a society.
Oh yeah.
And you know, there is a lot of initiatives to simplify life, because as the next generation comes behind the current generation, who's behind the great generation, there's less and less, what's the right word? There's more desire to enjoy, and the idea is I'll enjoy if I can simplify. If I can simplify, I need to get rid of my stuff.
Yes.
Right? You need to
Yeah, we
follow
all
that.
need to get rid of
We
our
all
stuff.
need to get rid of our
There's some
stuff, and
other
then it would become
scriptures that
easy.
talk about that.
Right? But it's so hard to
Yeah.
let go of our stuff.
It is. It is. Ask anyone who's moving from their home to a senior community. You have more stuff than you can imagine. And some of it, well, you know, like the garage sales, they do so well because somebody else, your junk is a treasure to them. Yeah, I think we are all guilty of that.
As you're dying, you are just desperately hanging on to life. So you're hanging on to something that isn't.
Yeah, yeah.
You're supposed to die.
Exactly.
You're
exactly.
supposed to go to your Lord.
Exactly.
And why do you fight it?
Yeah.
You know, what is that about?
Yeah.
You know, that clinging when you should be celebrating.
Yeah.
But that's what people do. And so it's the hanging on to even life
Yeah.
rather than material, and it's materialism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's materialism. You want to hang on to, and I mean, maybe you do hang on to relatives and loved ones. That makes some sense, but you're not losing them either.
Right.
Because they're going to come with.
Right.
It's just such an irony to me.
I
And
remember,
the most faithful people are still behaving that way.
I remember a parishioner, I guess the doctor asked if he wanted his wife in hospice, and he said yeah. And as soon as she walked out of the room, he was begging his wife to live. You got to live. Please live. Help, please. Don't die. Don't leave us. And I'm like, oh my goodness. The daughter was standing there also, and she finally said, Dad, stop it. We will be fine. Let Mom go. So that is very true. I know when my mom and dad were both at end of life, and you can see that, you know, they're not feeling good about this whole thing. I mean, they're in pain or something, you know, breathing poorly. And I said, you know, we'll be fine. It's okay. You can go. We love you. You did a wonderful job. You can go. And I gotta go. It's time.